From the News Channel 5 Network, this is MorningLine.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line. Nick Barris coming to you live on this Wednesday, and we've got a good show on tap. If you've been paying attention, here in the state of Tennessee, the legislative session just getting underway, and whenever that starts, as we embark upon a new year, it's exciting because, well, you know, so many things are on the table, and you wonder what's going to happen. Those of you who voted and have your lawmakers in place, what are they going to be up to? Well, this morning, we're going to get into it with a great panel of folks who cover the legislature, and we can take your calls and questions, and I'm going to ask them to kind of lay out for you what they think the key issues are going to be this next session and what maybe will be most contentious. But you're invited to join in the conversation, 737-7587, if you have a question for our panel as we talk about laws and legislation here in Tennessee as the new session is underway. So let's introduce our guests to us this morning. All right, we've got, as I said, these folks, I think between the three of them, cover every aspect of the legislature. They know their stuff, and it's good to have them with us this morning from various, media outlets. Carrie Wade-Gervin's with us this morning. Good morning, Carrie. Good morning. She's with the Nashville Scene and will be there covering the legislature. Joel Ebert with us as well, of course, with the Tennessean. Nice to have you on, Joel. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
I don't even know who that is. We'll just say, oh yes, Chris Conti is joining us.
Strange place to be in.
This is awesome that you're here.
Across from you.
He made it. Chris, well, you sit across from me in the newsroom, which is, in a way, is a privilege for him. But Chris Conti is going to be our legislative reporter, and of course, you did some of it, and we should say that a lot of us, obviously miss Mark Bellinger, who covered the legislature for us for years, and as you know, he passed away from cancer late last year. But Chris, I know you had picked up some while Mark, of course, had been out battling his illness, and so
big shoes to fill.
Yeah, and Mark's going to be missed, of course, but you'll be doing the legislature anyway. I wanted to kind of start with the three of you as the session gets underway. First, to ask you as legislative reporters, what it's like for a legislative reporter, and how maybe we'll start with you, Chris. You do a lot of general assignment. You've done this, and now this is going to be one of your new beats. But what's your take? What's different about being a legislative reporter? What's it like there on Capitol Hill? The media room, the interaction with the lawmakers. Well, what are your observations at this point with what you've dealt with? And I want you two to sound off on that as well, sure, just for the viewers to get a handle on that.
I think there's a difference between being up there and doing the other stuff we do every day, in that for the most part we hit a story once during the day and then that's it. Yeah. Whereas the legislature is ongoing. It doesn't, for the most part, this is the next 4 months or even the year. I mean, sure, there's obviously even the way things went last year when we were up there in September. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you leave it at the end of the day. Right. You go home and forget about it. It's still there, and there's always something going on. And so I think that aspect of it is different because you constantly have to be paying attention and keeping your ear to the ground on what's going on up there and looking forward. Whereas a lot of the times we're just really focused on what happens in a day, right, at a fire or a murder scene or something. You have to have a lot of context in order to almost predict sometimes what's coming so that you're better prepared for.
Do you think there's something newsworthy coming out of the legislature every day, or some days just ho-hum?
There are some days where it's just kind of you're twiddling your thumbs waiting for something to happen, but for the most part, it seems like there is something that we can always be chasing for the next day or the following weekend or something like that. So, most of the time you're going to have a story that is or at least I felt I did for the lead story for the paper last year.
Does that necessarily mean that when you zero in on that, you'll be there in that room with these two? Or do you guys may decide, some hearings more important for what you want to cover and vice versa?
I think it definitely depends on the area of interest. Last year I worked a couple of stories with Rick Locker, who has now left the Commercial Appeal and Knoxville News Sentinel, and he covered de-annexation because it affected the readership of those areas, and it didn't so much in Nashville. So I didn't really cover that issue. So there is some kind of discussion among colleagues. The AP we talk to a lot about what they're doing. So
sure. I'm just wondering, Carrie, as you deal with this and you guys have sent up, what kind of reception do you get from lawmakers? And does it vary according to lawmakers? I imagine some, never met a camera they don't like. Others just assume you go away.
Well, working for the Alt Weekly, the national scene, we have a different perspective on a lot of things out there, which it means that sometimes I'm more opinionated in our reporting, which has led some legislators already to stop taking my calls. But it's now that it's back in session, like it's you want to get the word out about your legislation, you're still going to talk to the reporter.
When they stop taking your calls, will you just show up in their office?
I mean,
or grab them in the hallway as they walk from one committee meeting to another.
Yeah,
I love doing that when they try running from you. And, I've been over there once in a while for specific stuff.
Have you?
Oh, I love hounding them. I love hounding them. Let's just go get them. Hey, look, man, they're public servants. They're elected. Okay, they don't have a right to ignore the media, in my opinion. And if they choose to, you gun for them.
Well, and even like yesterday, I mean, the simplest thing, even if you don't write about them, I was tweeting yesterday about one of the lawmakers, and afterwards he pulled me aside and said, "Hey, I heard I made it onto your Twitter." I was like, so clearly they're paying attention.
They pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yesterday, I guess, Randy McNally was replacing Ron Ramsey, I guess. Do you think there's any significance to that now, that we have a new lieutenant governor, and will he run things differently, you think, than Ramsey?
It's going to be different because Ron Ramsey is such a character and has been there for so long and has such a dominant personality. But Randy McNally's also been there a long time. He's well liked, he's well respected. And the Senate has a very different personality than the squabbling factions of the House. So I don't think we're going to see a completely different Senate this year.
Some of the same type of agenda. Do you get that sense?
Yeah, and that's what he confirmed, at least through his little interactions with the media yesterday. I spoke to him a couple weeks ago, and he said the same thing. I think one thing that's going to be different is last year we, and this was my first year covering the legislature, so I assume this happened years before, but Ramsey seemed like he could make news about anything. It might be just an off-the-cuff comment. I don't think McNally's going to be the same way.
Okay.
I think that, McNally is very measured in his approach of talking in general. So I don't think that we're going to hear something that he says and we're all immediately going to be like, what do we do now?
Right. More measured in that regard. You going over there?
We caught him yesterday walking into the chamber very briefly.
Yeah.
And I said, "Are you nervous?" And he said, "Absolutely."
Oh, really? Yeah, that's new for him, right?
He's very frank and and honest. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the reasons that he was also kind of tapped was because we have this election coming up next year. So I think they were looking for someone who wasn't just probably going to vacate the seat next year and start running for governor, and also someone they knew that they could kind of trust. And I think in a way too, because of how long he's been serving, they kind of were using it as a tip of the hat to say thanks for your years of service up here.
Right.
So I think there are a lot of factors playing into
now Beth Harwell back, as Speaker of the House, correct? And that wasn't a big surprise. That was pretty much expected, unanimous election, right?
Yep.
Now there is talk that in 2 years...
Unanimous yesterday.
Yes, but not
yesterday, but not within her caucus.
Oh, okay.
So at the caucus, there was some dissension within the ranks.
Which was not. All right. Now, it's interesting. Now, she's someone that's been, going to consider running for governor, right?
She mentioned it yesterday. I mean, we approached her at one point, and she said she's not ruling it out. She also hasn't said she's going to. So in the next 3 months, we might see a decision from her.
She did have a $2,500 a head fundraiser on Monday. So.
Oh, I was there. No, kidding. I couldn't afford that.
Which is common for lawmakers, though. So.
Yeah, 2,500, is that?
No, not 2,500. I mean, before the session starts, they have a fundraiser.
Oh, I see. Okay, I see. Well, listen, let's take a break. When we come back, we've got some calls coming in, 737-7587, if you have a question about this upcoming legislature. I assume all three of you maybe will make your way over there today for the ethics training. That's sweet. In the aftermath of Jeremy Durham. They're going to shake it up, right? Yeah, whatever. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with our guests and more of your phone calls as we talk about this upcoming legislative session right after this. Stay with us.